Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 284. Subscribe to our mailing list to receive weekly updates and exclusive content delivered right to your inbox. Go to drfrancesrichards.com. That's drfrancesrichards.com to subscribe to our mailing list and be entered into our monthly drawing. That's drfrancesrichards.com, drfrancesrichards.com to subscribe to our mailing list and be entered into our monthly drawing. We promise we won't spam you or sell your information.
Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black entrepreneur experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards, founder of Nēdl. Bring Black creators to the table with live audio platform. Welcome, Ayinde, Alakoye.
Thank you, Dr. Richards. Great to be here.
I've given our audience a very brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and Nēdl?
Well, I've created an app for the people, by the people. And it's more than just an app, it's a platform. So as you know, Nēdl gives everybody their own live call-in radio show that amplifies, transcribes, and monetizes their words as they speak. The reason why I came up with this has to do with my background. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm a child of the 80s, and I loved radio.
Talk about coming up with this idea. We know, I've read a little bit about it, and it talks about it's a platform similar to Clubhouse. Talk about the difference.
I recognize that a lot of people will think that we are similar to Clubhouse, but the fact is that we were born in 2017, long before Clubhouse, and it was sort of paving the way for Clubhouse to be. And now Clubhouse has helped us because we were sort of out there by ourselves, waving that people wanted to listen to live audio, and VCs were just not listening to us. So now it's very easy for us to have those conversations. What's the difference? I think we could just start with why we started. We started Nēdl to democratize access to information and the microphone itself, because we saw a big disparity between who gets listened to and who doesn't get listened to. And we wanted to change that.
Talk about your best decision as a leader.
You know, it's funny, just before we clicked on air, we were just talking about one of our new hires, a guy by the name of Carson, is doing really great stuff for us. Whenever I think about my best decisions, it usually has to do with the people that we hire. I've hired some really great people along the way, and it's typically, a lot of the times it happens from it happens sometimes from a hire that I've made brings on one other person. So you have to kind of trust your instincts about people, because that one good person that you bring on can lead to several other people that you end up hiring.
When you think about the start of Nēdl, tell us about one incredible story that really stands out.
Yeah, the story that stands out to me about the start of Nēdl is early on. So this is 2017. I was coming off of a startup that didn't have a big exit. By some people's standards, it wouldn't have been successful. I think we had a lot of success. But I was coming off by our investor standards, it certainly wasn't successful. But I was coming off of that. So I was really starting with scratch, really. And a lot of people think, oh, you must be rich to start all these companies. No, you just have to have a lot of ingenuity and a lot of stick-to-itiveness and never say never. So we were right in that position. And I was trying to figure out, okay, so if this is an environment that doesn't typically fund companies that look like me, how can I get the capital necessary for us to be successful with this venture. And I ended up going to a pre-accelerator, which when you hear my background, you're like, why would you go to a pre-accelerator? And what I realized was that was a sort of a good place to be, because you could get to a pre-accelerator and then you could get in front of investors who would be expecting very, very young companies, very, very inexperienced founders. And here I was. And at this time, we had very few prospects, and I decided, look, maybe I should just start cold calling anybody who has anything like venture or Black in their name on Meetup. And I just started calling people, literally cold calling for investment dollars. And I ended up finding an African-American woman attorney who was doing a venture, a Black venture fund in LA. And that became our first success, because I entered a pitch contest at Sip and Sonder, and we ended up winning that, and that built confidence for the next win that we had.
Someone's listening and they're saying, I want my own radio show. What should they do?
Oh man, it's easy. You download the app, and what you get when you get the Nēdl app, Nēdl, 4 letters, is you get your own 50,000 watt radio station so that you can have a live call-in radio show. And when you sign up, you also get your own custom URL so that people who you share that custom URL with can listen even if they don't have the app. They can even sign up for alerts to listen to you and get SMS text messages whenever you go on air automatically, even if they don't have the app. And then you press the go on air button and you're live and you can take callers. It's that simple.
Now, is it only operated via a phone? And is it an iPhone? Is it Android? Is it both? Or can you operate it via a laptop?
So that's the interesting thing about the newest version of Mac OS. And I think my daughter is joining us very shortly. But Mac allows you to go on air even from the laptop. But we are live on both Android and iOS.
Talk about the pandemic, profits, and pivot.
The pandemic, profits, and pivot. That's a good one. Right before the pandemic, we were planning on doing a pivot towards being more focused on podcasters. And so we did. We had removed our third-party content on Nēdl. In 2019, we had a very robust platform with lots of users, 12,500 monthly actives, all the numbers that you think would attract more investment dollars. But again, we were weighed in and nobody was. So we decided to remove all of that content because we were hearing a lot from investors that they didn't really understand why or how we could have 40 million songs for free. And so we removed all that content and just focused on the user-generated content that was already on the platform and doubled down on that. And right then, Clubhouse got launched. And so during the pandemic, because of Clubhouse's success, we were able to get a couple of lifeboats, not the least of which was the PPP loan and some other investors who were seeing the progress of Clubhouse. And I think had it not been for that, we might not have made it through the pandemic.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that. What book would you recommend and why?
I just picked up 0 to 1, and I was reading 0 to 1. I was like, wait a second, this sounds familiar. Oh yeah, I read it before. So it's really funny. Like I was scolding myself. I was like, hey, 0 to 1. I kept meaning to read that, and I forgot that I had already read it. 0 to 1 is a great book. If you're a startup person, you have to read, I think it's Tim Ferriss's Lean Startup. So it's the Lean Startup. You have to read that. You have to. But my favorite book isn't a startup book. It's called the Science. Sorry, it's my daughter. The Science of Getting Rich. and it's by Wallace D. Wattles. And it's more of a book about principles of how you live your life in terms of the way that you can attract wealth and sort of rule yourself so that you can be successful, whether you're in business or in other endeavors.
Look over the last 30 days. What was your biggest win?
In the last 30 days, we just got featured in an entrepreneur magazine. So that was really unexpected and very exciting. Black Enterprise, sorry. We were featured in Entrepreneur magazine, but Black Enterprise was super exciting because I grew up with Black Enterprise. My mom used to have this sort of wicker magazine cover back in the 80s, like this wicker magazine container. And she's put Essence and Black Enterprise and all these other magazines in that container all the time. And so, it was kind of a dream come true. That followed some great news from our patent. We do have a patent on our live speech technology, our search technology. And so we just got more good news about how our international patent is going. We've already been accepted in Korea, in addition to the United States. And then we also got a podcast that went on air for another podcast, I should say, for Afrotech. So last 30 days have been kind of exciting.
How do you celebrate your wins?
That's a good question. My neighborhood is used to hearing me scream and yelp. So I usually scream and yelp for about 30 seconds and then I get back to work.
That's excellent. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I want you to have a monologue, and this person has inspired you so much. I want you to name that person, living or not. And what are you saying to this person? Who is that person and what are you saying?
Oh, this is easy. So you are dear to me, and I want all these things for you that maybe I didn't have when I was a kid. And I also want you to live in a world that's a little bit better than the one that I grew up in. One that, if it reminds you of who you are and what your skin color is, it's because they already know how powerful you are and they're just celebrating you. And so that's a monologue for my daughter.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. What problem exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
I just touched on it. I finally came to Langston Hughes's ideas about the world. In my mid to late 40s, I did that. And when you listen to Martin Luther King's famously quoted speech, you often hear that you don't, what is the line about content and character, not judged by the color of their skin? Well, one of the things that we should be doing, please do judge me by the color of my skin. That's fine. You should, but you should know what that means. And I think we sort of have the wrong phraseology, and I don't criticize Dr. King for how he phrased it at the time. It was appropriate for the time. Now, if we think about that, it says, don't judge by the color of the skin, but by the content of the character. But it's not that the color of the skin is bad. It's that the person who is judging has no information, right? They don't know that my skin has champion written all over it, that my skin has heritage and it has culture written all over it. So please do look at my color of skin. Please do know that a Black man is walking towards you, but please understand and have that knowledge of what that means. I don't want anything from you. I have my own wealth and my own riches, and you should be wanting something from me, and you probably do. I want to live in a world where we are all treating each other and understanding that we are all gods among gods.
You've had some experience as a speechwriter.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
As the story goes, I was licking stamps for President, for then candidate Obama on the South Carolina primary day. And about 13 minutes into the speech, he starts to say the words that sound eerily familiar. And he says, and if you can imagine the real world and my world coming together like this is what it felt like. And he says, the fundamental choice in this election isn't the choice between black versus white or rich versus poor. The choice in this election is the choice between the past versus the future. And those were words that I wrote for him earlier that morning.
That is amazing. That is amazing. What is your biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur?
I think when you are an entrepreneur, the biggest challenge is yourself, right? I play beach volleyball. Fundamentally, it's a very easy game. I played volleyball in college, I should say, probably, because there's a lot of casual players out there, and that's not the game that I play. But yeah, I played Division I in college, and I played professionally, and I still like to go out and compete. And fundamentally, as I was saying, it's a very easy game. I mean, you're just touching a ball and pushing it, and you're just holding out your arms and making sure they're straight and making sure the ball bounces off of it. But you'd be surprised how much can happen between those in that little time in space, and how many different variables there are with the wind and sun and so forth. I was away from the game traveling with my daughter recently, and I had time to think about the game, and I thought about how simple the game is. And I came back to the game, and I was very good at the game because I just thought, all I need to do is snap my arm down, and then because I'm 6'4", and the ball will go straight down. So that experience of coming back to the game and just seeing how easy it is to play the game when you just think about how fundamentally easy it is, without clouding it with all these other thoughts and ideas and emotions, that reminds me of what it is to run a business. And it really is just managing yourself and your own thoughts and trying to keep it as easy it is as it can be, as opposed to complicating it with all of the baggage that we bring to everything that we do as human beings.
Talk to a younger you. What advice would you give to a younger you?
Talk to a younger me? I think I just did. If I were going to talk to a younger Ayinde, I would say to just try to get out of your way and make sure that you are, as in the book, Ego is the Enemy, make sure that you are thinking more about what you're trying to accomplish than who you want to be.
Talk about raising money, venture capitalists. What advice would you give someone that's thinking about that?
First advice I would give them, okay, so talking about raising money, I've raised $1.6 million so far, $1.7 million in this company. If you're African American, if you're Asian American, if you're, any of the things that fall out of the kind of the norms of what, if you're a female founder, if you're one of those things that fall out of the norm, I think it's important that you understand that there is a norm. You don't let that limit you, but you're cognizant of it. Because if you take advice from the books and so forth that are out there, they're giving you advice for people that look European American, male, just out of college, right? So it's important for you to understand that most of the startup material out there is written, and most of the things that are said are said for those people. That understanding then will allow you to think differently about how you approach things. In my case, I found that putting ourselves in environments where people didn't expect our experience and our sophistication worked very well for us.
What do you need right now that you don't have to move the needle forward?
I'm going to be super, super honest. We're still in a beta right now with our product. But I was just on Twitter yesterday, and I was seeing how some of the same issues that we've already tackled. One of the company, Clubhouse, is actually dealing with those issues with sign up right now. So I just come over, use the app. What we don't have is you. Yes, you, that person that's out there who's listening to me and writing and watching me right now. We need you on the air, on Nēdl, and sharing. It's really that simple. If you've been using another platform, bring that same conversation over to Nēdl and share it. If you're big on Nēdl, we are successful. So that's how we've structured our business.
What is the best advice you were ever given?
Keep your answers short.
The word is listening. What is that resounding sound or that message that your generation is saying that we should be listening to?
I'm going to take it back to volleyball for a second. There's a skill in volleyball called setting, okay? And it is a hard skill to learn. You have to have your elbows out. I'm teaching you. You have your elbows out. I used to coach. And you have your hands right above your forehead, and you push out and you flick with your wrist. And a lot of people try not to do it. In my generation, tried not to do it. They tried to just bump set instead of hand set, or just worked really hard on it. This generation, they just come out and they just try it until they don't get called for it, like until the ref doesn't stop the play of the game for it. So basically this generation is like, I'm just going to keep setting, even if it's a bad set, until people just like run on the court and just tackle me. That seems to be the way that this generation, you just saw Simone Biles, like literally the Olympics say that my mental health is more important than anything else. And I'm out. Like this generation, I think personally, it feels like it's to a fault, but at the same time, I'm learning and I'm like, wow, if I had that kind of confidence when I was, where would I be? So I think that this generation has a lot to teach all of us about who is worthy of what. You know, you are worthy of it. Go for it. And actually, I started to set more since watching some of these young people. And I have great hands, but I didn't give myself permission to use them before. So, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, this is a great time to just watch people and to start a business and to figure it out as you go along, because there are a lot of people out there who are just going for it.
Talk about the worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
My worst moment in business was not having closed on an investment that I had planned to close on, and not being able to hire someone who I had planned to hire. And it was really tough for me because I had made a promise to hire them. So the worst moment that I ever had as in business was the moment that I had to let go of 5 employees because we no longer had the funds to support our team. And we had been growing so fast before that. This is like back in 2011. So it was over a decade ago, and with a different company. And I just had to, for the first time, like, you know, number one, face 5 people that their livelihoods depended on me. And number 2, come to the realization, you know, that the buck stops with me. And so that was a really tough one for me.
Talk about your background starting businesses. Where did that start?
You know, what's really cool about that is that usually when you see successful people in business, it's not their first time doing it, or they had some parent or somebody in their background that was successful in business. And I was very privileged to grow up in DC and grow up around my grandfather in Anacostia, who had his own record shop. You know, as a kid, I don't realize that this is a transactional business or anything like that. I'm just running through the aisles with the different records there. And I also had my mom start an Amway business when we were young. And even though a lot of people say, well, that's not a real business, she treated it as such. And a lot of people treated it as such. And it is a real business. And I learned from watching her, you know, the risks that you take as an entrepreneur and how you have to dream and so forth. So for me, starting businesses was probably in my blood. And when I realized what corporate America was, I didn't really see myself. I saw myself, sadly, given the odds of entrepreneurship, I saw myself more likely being successful as an entrepreneur than rising through the ranks of CBS or whatever company that I was working for at the time. So, I mean, that sort of says a lot, but I think it was just in my personality to want to do that.
Talk about business continuity. What is your highest risk as a business owner?
Yeah, I would say my highest risk as a business owner, if I understand your question, is really the market, right? So like, you know, you can build the best product, but if you can't find the market, or if you're not building it for a specific problem in the market, then that's the highest risk. When we just don't know what users will do. However, I feel very tapped in, as any CEO will say, and we listen to our users, and we think that the product that we're building right now is the product that they've been asking for.
What is your zone of genius?
That's a great question. I think my zone of genius is problem solving when it seems like there's no solution. So if I get backed against the wall, if the challenges seem insurmountable, then I do go inward, and I do my best to channel and listen and find a solution.
You talked about the platform Nēdl is you went after podcasters. I'm a podcaster. So if I come to the platform, do I continue to do my show like I'm doing it, or do I transition?
So I'm going to ask you a question. They say never ask a question you don't know the answer to. If I gave you a spot on KCRW every evening at 5:00, would you want that spot as a podcaster, or would you say, no, my podcast is more important?
That's a very interesting question. I would have to really weigh it on both ends because I have 58,000 unique listeners.
Right.
So what happens to those listeners? And I'm the type of person, do I do this or that, or I want to do this and that? So I would have to say both.
Okay, good. That's the answer I was looking for. Both, right? It's super. Why would you say no to it, right? And what we believe is that the Telecommunications Act of 1996 was a treacherous one that allowed for the deregulation of radio, which meant that Clear Channel came in and others like them bought up every radio station and put a walled garden around the microphone. That walled garden meant that people in the communities no longer had unfettered access to their own radio stations in the way that they used to, because then it was more commercial. And it also meant that the music got very narrow as well, which is what birthed both the podcasting and the streaming industries. So we believe that podcasting is a proxy for really wanting to be on the radio in general, and a very good one, right? Because it served how things have evolved with asynchronous listening. But what we've done is we've kind of brought the radio back to people. We've given you your own radio station that people don't even have to have the app to listen to you, to follow you. And then we're also putting in tools like transcription so that you can have those transcripts at the end of your broadcast and purchase those, that you can have recordings. And then, of course, people can interact with you during the podcast, your live interactive podcast, if you will, so that you can have more feedback about how it's going in real time. So you can choose to use that recording. So the short answer, sorry, to your question is you can come on, do your podcast the way you normally would, but now you have a live trailer that you can share with people and really increase your listeners when you actually do release the podcast, because you can kind of tease people with the making of it in early access.
Talk about self-care. What does self-care look like for you?
I just got a pedicure. So for the first time in a while, sorry ladies, the feet were not looking good. But, it's really just kind of, I think self-care can be anywhere from a pedicure to not getting on the scale that day, or to just taking 5 minutes away from your computer, just saying, okay, I just need 5 minutes and get quiet. So it can be anything, large or small, traditional or non-traditional.
What can we do right now to support Nēdl?
What you can do right now to support Nēdl is to think about how big you want your voice to be, and to create an account on Nēdl, put the date for your next broadcast from your profile, put that into your account so that when you go to Nēdl, when other people go to Nēdl, they'll do what you've been able to do. I'm going to put you on the spot, Dr. Richards, and you can see when you went to Nēdl, you see Dr. Richards' next broadcast. And that was very easy. She just went to her profile, put a date in there. And then that lets new people see, oh, all these new conversations are coming up. And then they're more likely to stay on the platform and make their own broadcasts.
What is your weakness as an entrepreneur?
I think a lot of times, maybe everybody does this, but I know I do it a lot. And I have to remind myself constantly that I think a lot of people have the same perspective as me. So I talk to them thinking that they know as much about radio as me, or as much about real-time speech search as me. So I can do a better job. Bless you, baby. I can do a better job of really coming to people, with their perspective. And that's what I constantly work on.
Who are our leaders today, and what are they saying to us?
I think that collectively, we've been through a lot of trauma as African-American people, as people in general, as Americans in general. And I think that there are very few leaders in the world right now. I think that even when you look at someone like President Obama, who had to weigh every single word that he said 12 different ways, someone who even after 2 terms as president could get canceled tomorrow, I think that we are not ready for leadership right now. I think that when the people are ready for leadership, a leader will emerge. And we hope that they'll be using our platform to get their message out.
You have some hot off the press news for us. Tell us about it.
Yeah, everybody was saying how much they wanted ownership in Clubhouse, and that's a $4 billion valuation, right? So So we are now offering ownership in Nēdl. So if you are an investor, even if you're not an accredited investor, we're doing right now an equity crowdfunding that you can be a part of, and you can put your money into, so you can put your money where your mouth is and literally do that. So just go to our website and you can get the link to invest today.
And give us the website again.
Sure, it's Nēdl.com, N-E-D-L, N as in Nancy, EDL.com, just 4 letters. And then you can go to the website and click on the link to invest today.
And that's amazing, because a lot of people think about, I missed the boat with Facebook, I missed the boat with Clubhouse, but what way to get in on Nēdl, Nēdl.com.
Fantastic. Yes.
Thanks. We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. I'm going to ask you some quick questions. I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
So ready. I love this.
Your favorite color?
Green.
Your first job?
Working at a movie theater.
The last movie you saw?
Oh, it was, hold on, this is lightning round. It was Ford versus Ferrari, and it was so unexpectedly good.
You relax doing what?
Watching movies.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Mos Def.
Your favorite dance song?
The Way You Make Me Feel by Michael Jackson.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Broccoli.
Your favorite month?
December.
Work out or hit the couch?
Play volleyball, beach volleyball.
Ayinde, thank you so much for spending time with us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, why don't you share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and do business with you?
The best way to connect with me and do business with me is via LinkedIn. Is really good. LinkedIn is great. And send me in the message, say, I've just downloaded Nēdl, and then I'll automatically accept you.
Thank you. And give them the app for Nēdl again.
Sure. It's Nēdl, N-E-D-L. You can find that in the App Store or on the Play Store. And you can just go to home.nēdl.com or just nedl.com. And you can click on Fat Joe and all the other people that you want to get alerts for when they go on air.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richards. You were amazing.
Our guests have sent us so much swag, books, and giveaways this year. I can't wait to announce our monthly winner. So if you want exclusive content delivered right to your inbox and to enter into our monthly drawing, go to drfrancisrichards.com and subscribe to our mailing list. That's drfrancisrichards.com. drfrancisrichards.com. That's drfrancisrichards.com and subscribe to our mailing list. We promise we will not spam you or sell your information.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.